I'm Uriah Kennedy, and this is
Ingrid Bettridge.
God and Country. This is going to be a weekly podcast. It's going to be coming out every Monday. So I hope everybody likes and subscribes to it. I hope you find the content very, very interesting. Something to get you thinking, get you working with your friends and neighbors as to things that we could do better within society. The whole point of our conversations that we're going to be doing within God and Country is bringing together politics and religion. Now, politics and religion are taboo items around the Thanksgiving dinner because it causes family fights. But our feeling is if we start bringing morals and values back into society, we're going to be better as a society as a whole. We shouldn't be reluctant to talk about these type of things. We shouldn't be bashful or afraid to bring God into things because in reality, it's freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. Now, we're not going to be preaching. This isn't going to be a gospel subject. We're not going to be we're not going to be preaching, and we're not going to be catering to any one religion or the other. We're not going to be favoriting Catholicism or Mormonism or Southern Baptist or anything like this. It's where we all can come together and have certain principles that we stand up for and bring those principles, those values, it back into society and make it popular, make it
We
something
have
we all
more
talk
in
about.
common than we don't.
Exactly, and that's the whole point of this conversation is to bring out what we have in common, so we stop bickering and picking each other apart.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing. So if myself as a Mormon believe in certain principles, then the Southern Baptists will say, well, you believe this, and this, and this, and that's not necessarily true. You guys are a cult. Or the Catholics will try to pick apart the Jehovah's Witnesses, or the Jehovah's Witnesses will try to pick apart everybody else, or the Southern Baptists picking apart Lutherans. And what we should all be doing is finding out those common ground and just laying everything aside and just saying, well, yeah, we have idiosyncrasies between our religions that sometimes we can bicker about behind the scenes, and a good debate about those things is always good. It's healthy. And we should discuss those topics. But when it comes down to it, we need to unite politically, we need to unite socially, we need to unite as a country. And the only way to do that is to find the common ground that we have with each other and build upon that. I believe murder's bad.
Same.
You believe murder's bad, right?
Yeah.
I believe that rape is wrong. You believe rape is wrong. I believe that fraud is bad. I believe that child molestation is wrong, and then pedophiles shouldn't be.
I believe God is good. I believe family is good.
Exactly. And I can guess that most Christians out there, most Jews out there, even a lot of your conservative Muslims, all believe the same thing.
They share those with us.
We share the values. And if we would just bring those morals and values back into society, we'd be incredibly powerful at this point. Now, the one thing I definitively noticed is a stark difference before a Trump election versus after his election. Before his election, people were kind of standoffish. They were afraid to say, "Well, I'm a Trump supporter." They're afraid
sometimes.
They're afraid to lose their jobs. They're afraid to get X'd on social media or something like that.
Don't want to offend anybody.
Political correctness has got to be
Yep.
the big thing nowadays, right? And it wasn't just about Trump, but it always stemmed back to a lot of religious things as well. People a little less talking about God out in public, out in the workplace, out in politics.
Yeah.
God had to stay out of politics, just as bad as God is staying out of our schools. And that's horrendous. And I'm glad to see that coaches that were praying with their students are now coming back because they're winning their court cases. And
so good, so good.
so exciting to be able to see that. And even just a moment of silence was almost taboo. And we just need to stay, look, we all have differences of opinion when it comes to religion, and there's a lot of stark differences between Christianity and Judaism and being a Muslim or something like that. But in reality, we don't have that many differences. And if we would just settle ourselves down and discuss those things and support each other, Democrats would never have power ever again. They would never, ever win an election ever again. So the one thing I noticed was if you look at the combined meeting with Congress, the combined thing where Trump was a State of the Union without being a State of the Union. The Democrats were incredibly united, and they've always been united. I mean, they're with their signs, and they all vote in unison. They all protest in unison. It's the one thing that we can all admire about them is they are always united. They never shy away from a fight, and they fight amongst themselves. You'll see that in the news and stuff like that. But in the end, when it comes to vote time, they're voting together. They're voting in unison. And the Republican side, we often struggle with that. And I don't know why. It's like we pick each other apart. So I'm more conservative than you are, and you're less conservative than me is. We need to be more fiscally responsible, which we do. But
Well, we've had people that infiltrate the party with the purpose of dividing the party. So we get a little suspicious. And I think that's human, that we started to become careful and wanted to see, do you really share the values of the platform of the party?
I'm totally with that, because we should share the values, and we should have those debates and those conversations. And just with Christianity, we should have those conversations. But when it comes down to our social fights, coming down to pushing our school boards, when it comes down to the very elections, particularly the local elections, if we don't stand together, we're going to start falling. Because a kingdom that doesn't stand together always falls.
Always.
Always, every single time. And if we want to, as Republicans and as conservatives, if our politicians want to fight amongst themselves and bicker and argue and stuff like that and have that debate, fine, let's do that. Because it's good. We want to push more conservatism. We want to push more fiscal responsibility.
I think we need to listen to each other's ideas, too. There's nothing wrong with that. And you can disagree.
Yeah, disagree. I mean, that's okay. But then when it comes down to decision time, when it comes down to vote time,
Unite.
we need to unite. And I see very, very little of it. And I've seen very little of it in the past 10 years of politics. We're seeing a lot more of it now with Trump, because Trump is really swinging. I mean, he's a bull in a china shop. He's swinging for the fences with everything he does. He's brought together a tremendous cabinet. I have never seen a cabinet this well-rounded and this powerful.
Tell me God's not involved in that.
Ever. And that's pulling a lot of people. I see the normal rhino Republicans that we've had in Congress. All of a sudden, they're all voting.
You're name calling now.
All voting his direction, right?
Yeah.
They did vote in unison, except for the three senators and Mitch McConnell, who was, I don't know what he was thinking. He's out on left field somewhere. And then our lovely state senator in Maine, our lovely senator up in Alaska that keep voting against us. But for the most part, they all voted in unison and got his cabinet in there. And that shows some unison. But back to all this as a whole, I think before his election, we were all kind of standoffish and afraid to talk about things. And all of a sudden, when we see the election results, and he was a majority winner of the popular vote, not just of the Electoral College, all of a sudden everybody's not afraid to talk about it anymore. Nobody's afraid to talk about it, and it's becoming more accepted, I guess, in society. You don't have to be so politically correct. As we've seen in the last few months, wokeness is going down.
Yeah.
All this is going down.
Even noticing it like on shows on TV. God showing up and prayer showing up on an episode of a sitcom. People aren't afraid anymore.
And so in this podcast, we're going to be having discussions like this where we want to bring those morals and values back into society. Now, we're going to be discussing a lot of different topics over the next months. Next week, we're going to be bringing on and discussing specifically the differences between Israel, the government, and Judaism, the religion. And we'll have some guest speakers that are coming in that are Israeli and Jewish at the same time. And we'll be discussing current events, what's going on, what happened in the massacre over there with Hamas, and what their struggles are currently between Israel and Hamas, and whether they feel that those are justified and that every action is justified, because not every action is always justified. But we understand the different positions, and we're going to be discussing that. And weeks coming up, we're going to have a lot of guests coming in. So we hope you guys stay tuned. This is going to be, again, God and Country, and welcome back. I hope that promo really excited you and got some blood moving in your veins.
I hope it gave you chills.
It should have given you a lot of chills, because that's what we're hoping, that God is back. I mean, you saw that one little part in there where prayer was back in the White House. I mean, when was the last time you saw prayer in the White House?
It's been a long time. I feel like you got to go back to when I was young, as a kid.
Obviously. I mean, if we can get prayer back in the White House, I mean, what about getting prayer back into our schools?
Oh, can you imagine?
I mean, it's where the stigma behind the separation of church and state has been so hard, and everybody's getting afraid of getting sued by everybody else. I mean, you stick one little thing in there, and all of a sudden the school's getting sued for bringing God into it. So someone who doesn't believe in God, it's all of a sudden, you can't do that. And we've become afraid of our own shadows almost, because of how much we want to push God to the side. And that's something you do in your personal life. That's something you do at home. You don't bring it into the workplace. You don't bring it into politics. And shamefully, you don't bring it into school.
But that's not what our country was founded upon.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. I mean, the interesting thing about the Founding Fathers is you couldn't run for election unless you professed a religion.
I didn't know that.
That was like a rule. You couldn't run for office unless you professed. They didn't care which one, but you had to profess a Christian one. It had to be a Christian one too. You had to profess something. And if you look at the original 13 colonies, they're all set up on their specific religions, right? Mm-hmm. The Quakers, the Protestants, the Lutherans. They all set up, and that's how Massachusetts and Delaware and South Carolina and North Carolina, they all got set up, is because they just all separated in the religious bodies. And so when they discuss freedom of religion, it's meaning not having a specific religion sponsored by the state. This is the religion sponsored by the state. Only this one gets to do prayers and public services. This is the one that gets all the attention in the media. This is the one that the state officially backs, right? The state doesn't prevent anybody else from having their religions, but this is the sponsored one. And they saw that would happen, particularly with what was happening in England, where the Church of England was
the church.
And you had to be a member of that one, or else you're an apostate, you're against the king, and you could get in a lot of trouble for that. So they said it's freedom of religion. We're not taking God out of society. We need that in society, because the Founding Fathers also said that if society does not have or is not God-fearing, the Constitution is totally insufficient. Completely insufficient. The Constitution was designed for a God-fearing people that respected morals and values, common Christian traditions, and it's because of that respect, it's because of that moral background that the laws work. You treat your fellow man with respect. You treat him with honor. You're not out there trying to steal or kill or anything of these things. You have that type of respect, because you can't legislate evil. Evil will always exist, and I'm afraid that's what the Democrats are always trying to do, is particularly with gun laws. They try to get rid of the guns, but the only people that's going to hurt are going to be the good ones, because they're the only ones that respect the law. And a lot of that law respect comes from their Christian beliefs, that you should obey the laws of the land. And
They were definitely inspired during that time to include the things that they included. I mean, you think of where they came from and what they were living, to come to a point where they could bring all the things that the future would hold that they didn't know anything about, and have that included so perfectly in this document to found this country. Truly inspired.
And going along with that, they did not foresee us having the conflicts that we're having now. They did not foresee that the general public would be so adamant about taking that out. I mean, I've seen good Christians support and defend those who are trying to take this stuff out, saying, because, well, we need to respect
We don't want
everybody.
to infringe on them, yeah.
As a Christian, we should be not pushing our beliefs on top of them. And there's a difference between pushing your beliefs on top of them and still standing up for morals and values, right?
Yeah.
I mean, take into account what's going on with abortion, what's going on with men in women's sports, what's going on with gender mutilation that's going on with kids. Kids are having sex changes when they're young. And that's all the moral degradation of society. It's where we've pushed God out of our lives, and because we've pushed him out of our lives and we've become more tolerant, evil's
Well, you push
crept in.
God out of your life, you no longer have his inspiration to help inspire your thoughts and help you discern between right and wrong and truth and error. And there's somebody famous who said, truth is truth.
Truth is truth, exactly. And we're going to get to that. So in this podcast, you're going to see we're going to have a number of clips. We're going to play some clips right now for you. And these clips are good 3-4 minutes long, so bear with us. They're not little 30 or 40-second clips. And we feel that if it was just a 30, 40-second clip, then you couldn't grasp the entire message.
Yeah.
You can't just piece these things apart. So we want to compare, in our first couple of clips here, two doctors. There's Dr. Russell Nelson, that here in Utah we know him as President Nelson. And then there's Dr. Ben Carson. Two wonderful men that have done great things for the medical world. You have Dr. Russell Nelson, who invented the heart bypass machine and figured that out, and he'll discuss that in this clip, is how he invented that and saved a lot of lives because of inventing that machine and be able to actually go in and repair the heart. And then you got Dr. Carson, who was a brain surgeon, of all things, a brain surgeon. And if you listen to the Sean Ryan show, and this is where we're going to steal a couple of these clips is from the Sean Ryan show, and Sean Ryan, you hands off to your show. What you've done since 2019 is tremendous, with how many people that you've brought on, the lives that you've absolutely changed by just interviewing people, the insights you've brought. It's greatly inspired me. In fact, it's inspired this show and the reason we brought this show out. But going from Colombia and major drug addiction to where you're at now, it's awe-inspiring. I watch almost every single one of your shows, and his shows are at least 4 or 5 hours long. It takes me 2 or 3 days to get through those. But I try to watch those consistently. But we've stolen a clip from Ben Carson off of one of those shows, and we're going to play it for you right now. We'll play a couple of clips from his shows. But first, we want to show you a clip of Dr. Nelson here. And I'm going to cue this up, and you guys will have it here.
Truth is truth. Some things are simply true. The arbiter of truth is God, not your favorite social media news feed, not Google, That absolute truth cannot be altered by the opinions of men. If men are really humble, they will realize that they discover but do not create truth. Many now claim that truth is relative and that there is no such thing as divine law or a divine plan. Such a claim is simply not true. There is a difference between right and wrong. Truth is based upon the laws God has established for the dependability, protection, and nurturing of His children. Eternal laws operate in and affect each of our lives, whether we believe them or not. Well, the second experience by which I came to see the power of divine law came during my career as a medical doctor and scientific researcher. After graduating from medical school, I pursued advanced education in surgery. At that time, there was no such thing as heart surgery. Then, I teamed up with other researchers in the daunting task of making an artificial heart and lung machine. We knew that such an apparatus could possibly maintain the body's circulation while repairs might be made on the heart. But during that early era, there was much we did not know. Then one day, two truths articulated in the Doctrine and Covenants spoke to my inquiring mind. These truths were, first, that all blessings are predicated upon obedience to law. And second, that to every kingdom there is a law given. Well, I reasoned that if every kingdom had a law, there must be laws that govern the beating heart. I was determined to discover those laws and obey them. By doing so, blessings would come, and lives could be saved. In medical school, I had been taught that if one touched the beating heart, it would stop. However, one of the first things we discovered in the lab was that we could touch the heart of an animal without losing its heartbeat. This finding opened the door later to uncovering another law that made more complex open heart operations possible. We learned that if we added potassium chloride to blood flowing into the coronary arteries, thereby altering the normal sodium and potassium ratio, the heart would stop beating instantly. Then, when we nourished the heart with blood that had a normal sodium-potassium ratio, the heart would spring back to its normal beating pattern. Literally, we could turn the heart off long enough to repair it and then turn it back on again. Decades later, when I explained this to a group of medical students, one prominent professor asked, "But what if it doesn't work?" My answer, it always works, because it's based on divine law. Divine law is incontrovertible. The same can be said of the law of gravity, the laws of foil and lift that allow airplanes to fly. Each is an absolute truth. Doctors or pilots do not have the power to change those laws, but their understanding of them safeguards lives.
So that's just a great example of, I mean, like you were just saying, truth is truth. Law is law. And nobody's perfect. I mean, there's not a Christian out there that's perfect. There's not a human being out there that's perfect. There's one person perfect, and that was Jesus Christ, and we all believe that He was our Lord and Savior. And outside of that, it doesn't matter, even if you believe in God. If you don't even believe in God at all, there's still certain truths that are true. It is true that there's men and women, and that's it, right? That's a good, hard, fast truth.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what surgeries you've had or what you believe yourself in. And I fully believe that. Look, if you're
An adult.
if you're an adult and you want to go that direction, who am I to say different, right? I don't think that is government's place to say otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But where I draw the line is kids. Anybody under the age of 18, you need to stay away from that gender dysphoria issue and let them be kids, let them grow up. Because as he said here, he even found truth in surgery, in that which inspired him. So you can see that he brought his religion into his workplace and invented a heart bypass machine. And that takes courage, and that takes fortitude. And now he's running the LDS Church, which is one of the bigger churches out there now, and doing a tremendous job at it. There's a similar comment that we're going to bring onto this now about this topic of courage. And again, we were introducing Dr. Ben Carson, and we want to bring him on.
Such a great story. His child, where he came from and what he did for himself with the help of God. Amazing man.
Yeah, amazing. I highly, highly recommend any of you actually to go to the Sean Ryan Show and listen to the full podcast with Ben Carson. He talks about
I think
how
there's a documentary on his life, too.
Yeah, he specifically talks about how he grew up. They were poor. They were poor, and he studied hard, and he said, no, I'm going to be a doctor, and that's what he decided to do. And then he wanted to be a psychologist first, and then from psychology to brain surgery. I mean, I guess it's not a tremendous leap.
And he wasn't a perfect man either.
No, not at all. So let's watch this clip, and he's specifically going to talk about running. So when you walk into this Sean Ryan had just asked him about when he ran for president back in 2016 and what he was seeing across the nation.
I was impressed by the fact that most of the American populace has common sense. But I was disappointed that most of them did not have courage. Those people were not willing to stand up for what they believed in. They wanted to go along to get along. They didn't want to be canceled. And I realized that was a problem for our country.
How did you figure that out? How did you figure out that the majority of people don't have courage?
By talking to them, by asking them, why aren't you doing something about this? Because people realized that our country was moving in the wrong direction. But very few people were willing to do anything about it, to stand up for it. That's in the process of changing. We saw the manifestation of that in this last election. But it required a lot of people to be out there beating the bushes. And that's why we were out there beating the bushes. And we'll continue to do so because we still have ways to go. We're a heavily divided country. And we've lost a lot of our moral compass. Things like traditional marriage are not occurring anymore or are occurring late. We're not having children. In 1960, the average woman had 3.6 children. Now we're down to 1.6. That's a problem. In terms of traditional nuclear families, all you have to do is look at television for 5 minutes. Any new series that comes on before they introduce an alternative to the traditional nuclear family. The values, all of our values are being questioned, and people are being driven apart.
I think he's right. I think he's right. People are being driven apart. But the very first comments he says there is, as he went across the country and he was campaigning and standing in front of crowds, to his surprise, to his chagrin, he saw a lot of common sense, and which is kind of get lost amongst politicians, particularly the Democrat side. They kind of lose their common sense there, particularly when they're trying to fight against Trump or fight against what is right. But what he failed to see was courage, which is simply put, people standing up for what they believe in. No matter what happens in society, no matter what happens in the political spectrum, no matter what happens in your work life, your personal life, you should have certain morals and values and not be shy about them.
And courage doesn't mean being belittling, not allowing somebody to express their opposition. But courage means, what does courage mean? Standing up for what you believe in despite a difference with somebody. And, both the stories of these two doctors, what I noticed in the beginning was the great things they were able to accomplish because they had God in their lives, which gave them the courage to believe in what they were doing and not doubt, what if this doesn't work? I mean, I've always been such a big worrier. And if I'd had more, I think we can have more confidence in ourselves when we know God is on our side and believe that we can do hard things.
Oh, like when he was talking to that med student and says, well, what if it doesn't work?
Yeah.
It always works.
Yeah.
That's the way it works. I mean, that's just the way it should be. It always works. And I think we'd be shocked that when we actually stood up for our morals and values, it'd be the same thing. It would always work. People will respect that. Whether they believe in God or not, you'll find that the vast majority of people have a lot more respect for that than you might think. I have one of my best friends lives out in California, and he's non-denominational. He loves the Bible, studies the Bible. He goes to a couple churches of his own, and he's probably the most Christian guy I know. I mean, by far. He says prayer at every meal, whether we're in a restaurant or not. He's always praising God about whatever happens in his life. And I don't know very many people out there that are more Christian and more God-fearing than that man. And he's actually provided a pretty good example for me, and he's not a member of my faith. And probably one of the best examples I've ever seen. And I think that we can see that everywhere. You can see that with Nelson. You can see that Ben Carson. Ben Carson's not in my faith, but I think he's probably one of the best men I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The points he made out there, that society is losing its morals, the family unit, the degradation of family, that's on purpose. People are specifically trying to degrade the family unit. I mean, the most shocking news report I saw the other day was, I think it was a state senator up in Washington that literally came out in the open and said that parents do not have the right to tell their kids what to do after 13. That if they want to get a sex change, they can go out and do that. They don't have the right. Their kids belong to society now.
Perfect.
In the open, he said that. And you're telling me that there's not a huge degradation in society? That is shocking. I saw that, and I was like, my jaw dropped. I'm like, yeah, those are fighting words.
Jeez.
I mean, if you were anywhere near my kids, those would be fighting words. And from there from traditional marriage to people just not having kids at all. I mean, it's up to how many kids you want to have. But I think the point he's making there is kids and family are no longer the priority.
Mm-hmm. They're not valued.
They're not valued. That's not the priority. My
Getting ahead in the world, more money, more fame.
the career, right?
That's the value,
career,
yeah.
That's the value. The popularity, the career, and family becomes less and less important. I mean, look at the divorce rates that are out there. It's skyrocketing. How many mothers are raising their kids as a single mother where the father's not even home anymore? And you see that with the masculinity of men being degraded, right? With women saying, I no longer need men. And that's not the case, because you can see that just in general society is degrading.
It's a big parallel to where we don't need men, we don't need women. We need each other because we're different. Same thing within our faith, within the Christian faith. We need each other because we are different and because we have a different perspective and we've got value to share with each other. And I think one of the great training things in the world is to learn to live with a boy and a man in the house. You know, we're different. And you learn to love somebody despite their differences and how you overcome living and loving with a person. I recently spoke to somebody that came into my office who said that just in case you didn't know, I'm getting divorced. And I go, oh, you know, what happened? I just don't think we're compatible anymore. Simple as that. Like, we're just not compatible anymore. Well, we're not going to be compatible with a lot of people and a lot of things. We're not going to see eye to eye and have the same desires in every aspect of our life. It's learning to love each other despite those things, and it's a good reflection in society too.
I mean, we participate with each other, we grow with each other. That's the way marriage should work. I mean, no one ever said marriage was easy. It's not like it's a Disney show and where it's happily ever after, right? You have to work at it. And you're going to have your fights between husband and wife. You're going to have fights because of kids. You're going to have fights because of money. You're going to have all these issues. But you get past that. Why do you get past that? Because you go back to core values that you should have from growing up. And those core values, no matter what religion you are, come from God.
Yeah.
And that's what pulls you through those marital struggles. But it doesn't stop at marriage. It stops at you and your relationship with your kids, and at you and your relationship with your community, you and your relationship with society. It affects the entire family unit, which affects the community, which affects the nation. And our entire election cycles depend on that moral values always being there, to where we have something to fall back on. We have something that holds us up. And if we don't have that...
If you don't want to work at your marriage, it's not going to work. If you don't want to work in society at being a part of what happens, I hear, well, and even more so when this all started, you know, back in the time, people are like, I don't want to be involved in politics. I'll let somebody else do that. That's part of why we were in the mess we were in. Nobody wanted to care anymore. And it's hard. Those are hard things. A lot of people don't like contention. And so we don't want to have contention. Can we learn to listen to each other without having to have contention and really listen? Get where they're coming from. You don't have to agree with them, but you can understand why they believe what they believe, even if you don't agree with it. And we have an obligation as citizens to live in this country to be involved in those things. From the local, I mean, I think that's the first place to be, is involved in your local politics. Who's your mayor? Do you know them? Do you feel like you can talk to them? How's your city run? Is it a city council city? Who makes the decisions? They're making them for you and your voice. You should be involved. And your faith and your beliefs are what you use to voice what you would like those people who represent you to say and do. So I think it's been a lesson for us.
And you're not going to city meetings and with your Bible and saying, you guys need to go to church.
Absolutely
and you guys
not.
need to pound the Bible a little bit more or anything else like that. You're going there to stick up for those values and say there's certain things that you guys are promoting that is just straight up wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that more and more often happen now, because you'll see it on TikTok and Instagram and those things where you'll have these city community meetings where the public is actually just now starting to stand up. You saw that a lot in Chicago now, particularly with the whole immigration problem, right? You saw the mayor in Chicago, the mayor in New York, where they were welcoming everybody. There are sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, and the public finally got tired of it, where they were spending so much money on illegal immigrants and not building up the society. That money should be building up our schools, should be building up...
Not taking care of the citizens that you are sworn to protect and serve. Yeah. They're first. Yes, we have compassion for other people, but your first duty is to your family. Do you not feed your family here in your home and start taking care of the people down the street?
And I think a lot of times the other side will try to use your morals and values, your Christianity, against you.
Yeah.
Right? They'll start degrading you as, well, what are you for? That's not the very Christian thing to do, to kick them out in the street, to send them back to their country. You should be more Christian. And I'm like, I am Christian, and I do believe in loving your neighbor, and I do believe in that Christ-like attribute there. But at the same time, we have certain obligations. I have a moral value to my family and to my community first. And if I don't know who's coming across that border, and I don't know what kind of morals and values they're bringing,
Yeah.
what kind of crime they're bringing, or what they thought was, or what has been passed as okay in their society, because let's face
I
it.
love how you said obligation too, because that's what it's about too. I don't know the exact wordings and stories that my parents told me, but my parents are immigrants from Chile. They immigrated with my two oldest sisters and had two more of us here in the States. And my father worked in the country for many years, back and forth from Chile to the United States before he became a citizen. And then they had to go through the process to bring the family over, and aunts and uncles. And they explained that to me in a way when we had an uncle come live with us who didn't come with his family right away. And I used to ask him, why isn't your wife here? Where, don't you miss your wife? Don't you miss your sons? And he'd go, I miss and love them very much. But these things, there's a process. And these things, and he would cry for her. But they wanted to do things the right way. And they eventually did, and they worked through. But my parents understood that, and my family understood that. And I'm impressed with the sacrifices that they made in order for that family to eventually have a free country to live in.
I totally agree with that, because I come from a similar background. So my first wife was from Chile. We'll
Chileans
get
are
into
pretty
the
cool.
divorce discussion later. But then my second wife is from Colombia. And so I've been Spanish speaking my entire life. I'm very, very fluent in Spanish. I have a lot of Latin friends, particularly because of my wife. We go Latin dancing all the time. We go to a lot of Latin
Sweet.
parties and quinceañeras and dances and everything like that. I'm a great salsa and merengue and,
Perfect.
and bachata dancer. I love getting out there. I think it's kind of mixed in with my country dancing a little bit. But I helped both my ex-wife and my current wife go through the legal process of coming across. I brought my first wife across as a fiancé. We were married for 11 years. And then my current wife came across as with asylum from Colombia. She worked for a politician down in Colombia. When she was really young, she was just like a little secretary. She was a nobody, but she worked for this politician. And the cartel down there assassinated the politician and was threatening the lives of everybody within the campaign.
Wow.
And so she got out of town and came up to the United States and got an education visa and went to school. She started school and went down in Florida and became a teacher. And now she's an elementary school teacher up here. But and she's that whole entire time she only had a little green card. But she had that legal work visa and green card. And then now that we got married, now we're working on her citizenship. And she's got the entire process done now. And all she's doing is waiting for her interview to come up. And we have no idea how far out they are on the interviews. But once she does the interview, then she does the swearing in and she's done. So there's a lot of people out there who can say, well, you're biased. You just want to kick everybody else out. And you're not being humble about it. You're not being righteous about it. You're not being Christian about it. And there's racism involved. And I'm like, there's no racism involved either. My kids are half Chilean and half Colombian and half American. And so, and like I said, I'm fluent in Spanish. I have a lot of Latin friends, and most of my Latin friends have come up legally. I've worked my first 10 years of my career in the construction industry. I knew a lot of illegals that were up here and just came up here to work. And I know they're very, very good people, probably the hardest workers ever. I always appreciated them coming up and working on it because a lot of times they'd work harder, better than the North Americans. But I appreciate those that want to come up here and work and not want to leech off of society. They want to come up here and all they want is Medicaid. They want food stamps. They want their cell phone. They want WIC.
You know, in the last few years, there's a lady at a restaurant who's been going through the process for years. And when all of a sudden the news is showing that you can come through and you are given, here's some money, here's a place to live, here's a cell phone, and here's health care. And she's like, I've been going through this process for years. She goes, where's my cell phone? Where's my money?
I told my
and
wife.
It breaks my heart because she works so hard and sends money back to her family. She's willing to work 3 jobs. To me, she's one of those can't sit still, can't not work. I know somebody else like that.
Yeah,
But
I'm a lot like
she's just such a hard worker, and she's older than I am. And I wonder, will it ever happen for her now with what we had going? And so now there's hope. And I tell her, you know, give it time. Now that things have changed, let's see if those who were trying to go through the process the right way can get some progress.
It was a funny thing is during this whole thing we were watching the news and just millions of people coming across the border. I told my wife, I'm like, hey, if I drove you down there and you went across and just came back real quick,
No.
do you think they'd give you $3,000 a month? I mean, that's almost as much as you're making as a school teacher. You wouldn't have to do anything. And I was kidding with her about that too, but it's funny how that is why don't you just come off illegally because of all the benefits. I mean, you get to go to the city of your choice. You get to get put up in a hotel free of charge. You get to have a stipend. Some of these people are getting stipends of $2,500 a month, which is insane.
Tell me what business in this country you could run like that would be successful. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. So, and I just, it peeves me when people try to take the fact that we want to curb illegal immigration and tell them, no, don't come across, and they want to attack my Christianity about it and say that's not the Christ-like thing to do. It is. They should be happy in their own countries, and if they want to have the same society we have, then they should fight for it.
Yeah.
They should fight for it. I mean, I had grandparents that fought for it. I mean, my grandpa fought in World War II. My other grandfather on my dad's side fought in the Korean War. All my kids are military. My oldest son was in the Army for a number of years and was stationed in Korea. My second son is currently active Air Force. He's a C-130 mechanic down in Texas, so hurrah, Texas and the Air Force. My third son goes into the Army along with my adopted son. They swore in already, and they hit boot camp in about 3 weeks. We're going to be sending them off to North Carolina. They're going to be Apache or Blackhawk helicopter mechanics.
Stuff. Wow.
So, I mean, that's in my blood. I have a great ancestor that we have documented information that he fought in the Revolutionary War. So if somebody wants to come or wants the same things that we have, they need to be able to stand up and fight for those things. If the things that are happening down in Venezuela is absolutely appalling.
Yeah.
But they need to stand up for themselves and push him out. And they held an election, and he tried to usurp it, and then the people didn't rise up and say, no, that's fraud. You need to get out. What's the problems that are happening down in Mexico right now between cartels and the government where everybody's just being bought off? They need to get with their president and say, look, if the cartels are so powerful that we can't do it on our own, then we need to seek outside help and not start bad-mouthing Trump, saying, we don't need your help, we don't need you in our country, you better not come across the border, to the second he declared the cartels as a terrorist agency. So, again, don't tack my Christianity saying I'm not being Christian when my fiduciary responsibility, let's say it that way, is to my family, my community, my country first, which is the whole point of Trump's campaign was America first, right? We are first before everybody else. We got to stop taking care of the rest of the world and actually take care of ourselves first. And Christ taught that, right? He said, first cleanse inside of the cup before you start going outside and fixing other people's problems. Worry about yourself first, and then once the inside of the cup is clean, then you can go and you can.
And that's
help
not a
anybody else.
prideful thing. That's an obligation.
It's an obligation. It's something we should be doing, which is a good segue. Let's go ahead and go into Ben Carson's second
Yeah.
clip that we have right here. Again, it's a couple minutes long, so bear with the clip here, but you guys will see exactly why we chose these clips.
How did you respond to the criticism? Did it affect you at all?
Amazingly, I don't really care too much about criticism. I would only care about what God thinks. And even in my political career, when people have been critical, I don't really pay much attention to it. As long as God is not critical, I'm good. I would prefer to see us spend more time cultivating the best of people by bringing them up the right way, having the right influences in their lives, bringing church and morality back, having a revival in our system, encouraging people to prepare themselves academically, creating the can-do attitude in America as opposed to the what can you do attitude. Because I believe that the potential that exists in each human being is absolutely enormous if it's cultivated the correct way.
And I think he's right. I mean, we're not neglecting others, but the other countries. But look at our poor communities. You get a lot of very, very poor communities in Chicago, New York, L.A. that are getting completely neglected.
Yeah.
And those kids, those people have a lot of potential. Like he says, every soul has potential. Every soul has value. But if we can't even take care of ourselves, if we can't bring our own citizens up, how are we going to bring anybody else up? I mean, you look at USAID and the big fiasco that USAID was and how much fraud is in that. I mean, if you look at USAID, you'll see that some NGO, non-government organization, went and solicited money, got this huge grant, filled their own pockets full of a whole bunch of money, spent very, very little of it on the actual program itself, and then the rest of the money gets donated to radical causes, to campaigns. A lot of the Democrats are using that as campaign funds, or it's going to push their morals and values on society, which is completely wrong. But a lot of that money, if, again, you listen to a couple of Sean Ryan shows or the Dan Bongino shows, he talks a lot about this. A lot of that money went to manipulating other countries, manipulating their elections, manipulating their societies, saying, okay, if you don't put LGBTQ into your society, if you don't have these certain regulations, then we're going to stop your funding. We're not going to give you this money. So they are specifically degrading other societies and pushing these obscene morals and values that they're trying to push here in the United States. They're trying to push those in other countries and winning because of the fraud and the money. And if that's not anti-Christian, I don't know what else is. But that's what he's talking about here is you shouldn't be afraid to stand up. The first thing he asks there is well, what do you think of the criticism? I don't really
I want to
care.
be more like him. I need to do more of what he says and care more about what God thinks. And we say that, but really live it. Care more about what God thinks about what I'm doing than those who are going to criticize me. Love that.
Exactly. And if we all stood up like that for morals and values in the way we talk with each other, the way we vote, I mean, if everybody kind of stood up for those morals and values, we would have probably gotten even a bigger majority in this next election or in the election that Trump did. because people would see that you are standing up for morals and values. You're voting for Trump, which could have given them courage to step up and say, well, if you're doing it, I'm doing it, right? Instead of the other way around. The other way around, everybody's like, well, if they're not going to talk about Trump, I'm not going to talk about him. I'm afraid to talk about him, right? And we go the wrong direction, right? Everybody's, the example, the peer pressure is going the wrong direction. And people are getting peer pressured into not talking about morals and values, not talking about God, not talking about just good things in our elections, good things about the country, when it should be the opposite. We as Christians, we as Jews, as
People of
conservative Muslims, we should be standing up for those morals and values and showing it so that everybody else can take courage from our example and say, well, if they're doing it, then I'm doing it. I mean, I can guarantee that if everybody of faith were to do that, the left probably wouldn't win another election ever again, because everybody would stand up. But it takes a leader to do that. It takes individual leaders within individual communities to do that. Now, Trump brought it all out because his pragmatism and his bigger than society, bigger than anything type of attitude really brought it out in society. And I think that's what really brought this home and why so much strength is behind that now. But it shouldn't have taken that. It shouldn't have taken, like he was saying that first clip, when he went around the country, he saw a lot of common sense, but not a lot of bravery, not a lot of courage. And I think we need to be a lot more courageous in society and kind of just standing up for it. Again, you're not preaching. You're not preaching. You're not saying, come to church with me on Sunday. Come join my church. Come get baptized. But you're saying, I think these things are wrong. I think, again, that immigration at that extent is wrong. It's going to kill our society. It's going to degrade us morally, ethically, financially. It's just going to kill us. The push of LGBTQ on our children is morally wrong and evil, absolutely evil, and that should not be done. And we should be able to stand up for it. Abortion is morally wrong and evil, and you're not being tolerant if it's your body, your choice, right?
Yeah.
It's wrong. It's repugnant. There's too many ways that could be so much better. I mean, obviously, adoption could be a lot easier and cheaper.
And we can go into depth in those topics in future
things,
future episodes. But truth is truth.
Just like Nelson said, truth is truth. There are certain things in society that are just wrong, and we need to stand up for it, and we need to vote for it. In our school boards, in our local communities. And I think that a lot of times mayors and school boards just get into office without much of a fight because we really don't care about the local elections. They're not as important as the national, right?
Wrong.
So wrong. And you're a state delegate here in Utah. I'm a state delegate. I'm also a county delegate and a state delegate here in Utah. And we see that firsthand. We saw that at the Republican convention here in Utah when we were voting for our senators and our local officials. We saw it in the school board elections that we were voting for. In fact, we're going to have some of those individuals onto the show here in the next couple of weeks. So you'll be able to talk and see the opinion of a lot of school board people and our local elected officials.
And the more I've been involved over the last 20 years, the more I stand up for when people say, oh, all politicians are horrible people. And I'm like, you don't know firsthand what some of these people sacrifice with their families and put themselves out there to make a piddly $17,000 a year to fight for your right to have freedom. There's a lot of good people. There's a lot of people who, temptation comes. People can go corrupt and do corrupt things. But, not all teachers are bad, not all cops are bad, not all politicians are bad. And if you believe you can do a better job, put your hat in the ring.
Isn't that so hard to put your hat in the ring? Because everybody knows what you're going to go through, right?
Yeah.
But like we were just saying, we're going to have all those people here on the show over the next couple of weeks. We've got them scheduled. They're going to be coming on the show, so look forward to that. And even if you're not from here in Utah, the subjects and the topics that we're going to be discussing, you should be implementing in your own state, in your own community, because those are good things to have. Those are going to be good stand-up values, good policies to enact.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear what people in other states are going through and things that they would like to see discussed, and things that can help others to be more courageous at sharing their faith.
Yeah, so down in the comments down below, please, we love the comments. Put a lot of comments down there because the topics of discussion that you guys bring up, anything you guys want us to tackle, we'd love to be able to tackle on the show. We'd love to bring on specific guests. If you want to see somebody on here, we'll definitely reach out there. We've got some sway as delegates and being in politics for as long as we've been in, that we can pull some pretty good people in from around the country and see what we can do about answering a lot of those questions or addressing concerns or addressing how to address morals and values within the community. And Ben Carson, again, talks exactly about that exact topic, about what he wants to see the country mold into, and we're going to go to his next clip. There's 2 more clips with Ben Carson, by the way. So hang on with us here, and we're going to move on to this clip.
Let's do it.
Things are going on now that no one would have imagined 30 years ago. And sometimes the country is hardly recognizable anymore. But I don't think that's the way that the majority of Americans want it to be. And one of the things that we've been trying to do is get people to wake up, particularly people of faith. It doesn't have to be that we're denigrating marriage anymore. It doesn't have to be that we're mutilating little children and taking advantage of the fact that they're very suggestible and very curious and doing things to them that will ruin their lives forever. Those things don't have to be. We don't have to have men playing in women's sports. All of these things are eroding our moral fabric. And that's exactly what those who want to fundamentally change us want. If you look at the congressional record from January the 10th, 1963, Congressman Herlong of Florida read into the congressional record the 45 goals of communism in America. And they included all of those things. Gaining control of the schools and the teacher union so you can indoctrinate the kids, gaining control of the media and Hollywood so you change the culture of America, making sexual perversion normal, natural, and healthy, denigrating the role of the family, elevating the role of government. It's all in there. And we need to understand that we're under attack and we have to fight back. There have been people who have been opposed to the American way and American values since the very beginning. The Europeans thought that we were crazy. They said, you can't run a nation on the will of the people. You have to have a monarch. You have to have a ruler. But in today's world, we have to contend with the factions that still believe that socialism and communism is a better way of life. That you give control of your life over to others who will guarantee that they will take care of you from the cradle to the grave. Even though it's never worked anywhere else, there are still those who push that and will continue to push it. And they've gained a lot of momentum. You can see how a lot of the college students seem to be taking that as something that is good. And I don't think that they really understand what socialism and communism is. And they don't really understand how good they have it in this country and what the opportunities are in this country for success. But we have to continue to fight that fight.
What do you think the most effective way to fight this is?
Education. One of the things that you'll notice that the leftists in this country do is they shield people from information. You'll notice that the mainstream media did a very good job of keeping people away from the knowledge of what was going on. I remember coming back from the airport, and I asked the limo driver what his thoughts were about Hunter Biden's computer, his laptop. He didn't know anything about it because he listens to the wrong news sources. Didn't know. It was a complete shock to hear about that. And a lot of these children that you see on these campuses rallying for Hamas and against Israel, they don't know anything. They're shouting about the river to the sea. They don't know what river. They don't know what sea. They don't know what the whole conflict is all about. They are manipulated because they're ignorant. And ignorance is bliss for the left because ignorant people are easy to manipulate.
Ignorant people are easy to manipulate, right? And I think a lot of left politicians, Democrat politicians, I mean, that's what they're doing is they throw stuff out in the news media, just random comments. They're just off-the-wall comments. Why? Because they know that people aren't going to, at least their base, isn't going to follow it. They aren't going to research it. They aren't going to find
And
out
I'm
even
going to
if it's
throw
true.
out there, too, that there are people that I know who lean left or are Democrats, and ignorance, they trust those people that told them. These are good people, but they don't know any different because that's the only thing they hear. And if we were more courageous in sharing truth and our beliefs, they'd at least have something to judge it against, right? Because I know a lot of good friends that are just bleeding heart people and they just want to take care of. And I even had a friend once ask me, in sincerity, ask me, what's so bad about socialism? Everybody being taken care of. And I wanted to make it a safe place for her to be able to ask that because she really wanted to know. She's a school teacher. And I didn't have the words. I was kind of aghast, my husband shared. But he did a really good job of giving her some things to think about.
Socialism and communism is dangerous, and it's scary, and it's shocking how many of our students on our college campuses believe that that's a solution. But it happens in almost every single generation, right? It just keeps over, and history is just repeating itself and just going to that grind where one generation after the next thinks, oh, that's the solution. And if you go back to Christianity again, we all Christians, again, we believe that there was a war in heaven. And two gentlemen stood up, and one said, follow me, and the other one said, follow me as well. One was going to give us our freedom, and the other one was not. The one that was not, Satan, his idea was to force everybody to
Get everybody back.
Force everybody to obey. You had to obey. That is verbatim what socialism and communism is. He is trying to continue to try to force his plan upon us, even though we don't want it. And he is fooling a lot of people into thinking that it's going to work.
And sometimes just that contrast right there can give food for thought. You just argue and debate and tell somebody they're stupid for believing what they believe, their ears aren't going to be open to you. They're going to double down. Do we want people to actually hear and think and contemplate? And that's where I feel like the more Christ-like Christian thing to do. Listen and hear and share your thoughts in a way that cares because you care about this person. And just maybe the Lord touches their heart because he never gives up on anybody, right?
Not a single person will you ever give up on. Not a single person. We all know that. He'll never give up on us. And because he won't give up on us, because he did so much for each and every single one of us, why wouldn't we stand up and have just a little bit of courage? I mean, we're not saying go out there and start preaching the gospel or put yourself out of your comfort zone, which you should be out of your comfort zone at least a little bit. But we're not saying try to go out and convert people. We're saying there are common morals and values that we all know are right and wrong. Like Nelson said, truth is truth. There are laws that are out there. And if we just stood up for the basics, the basic truths, the basic laws, and stood up to them no matter what, no matter the political correctness, no matter the Hollywood scene or what's the in or the out, society as a whole would change. Our elections would change. The relationships between our neighbors, between our families would change. It would all change.
And I'm starting to see some change. I mean, look at the Super Bowl. How many prayers did we have there? I mean, I saw some things in there and I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I see that since the election as well. All of a sudden, God is back into society. We saw the prayer happening again in
In the White House.
In the White House, which is amazing. Who thought that was ever going to happen? But it's becoming more and more vocal. You'll see the people on Fox News that Ash Sunday or Ash Friday it was. They all had the little ash cross on their foreheads that they went to Mass. I haven't seen that in 10 years, even on news media. God is back. And that's prayer is back, God is back, right? Like our introduction there. That's why we put it on there. That's so important to have those back. And you look at Arlington and you see, again, like on our intro, all those that have paid the price for what we have. We don't want to give up those morals and values that we fought so hard for. I mean, we all have parents and grandparents that fought in those wars. We have family and people who are currently military active. They all understand what they're fighting for. They understand that this country stands for something. When people see this flag around the world, that flag means something. It means freedom. It means someone's coming here to save you. There's a cool quote that I see online all the time where in World War II or even in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, the French, when they had their military out there, they would say, when you call for help, when you're bogged down and you're getting overrun, hope an American answers the call, because they don't care about logistics or how to get there. They don't care how many bad guys are out there. All they say is, wait a minute, we're on our way. And they don't even know what they're up against, so they'll figure it out when they get there. And so around the world, that means something. That means something. And if we give up on that now, if we just let things slide, if we just say, oh, I'm being tolerant, I'm being politically correct, what you're really doing is we're losing that. You're not fighting for it. You're letting all that blood die in vain because you're not there to stand up for those simple, everyday principles that, again, every Christian believes in, every Jew believes in, every Muslim believes in, if they're conservative Muslim anyway, not radical. We all believe in those things. If we just stood up for those simple little principles, the world would be different. We wouldn't have college campuses up there promoting socialism, communism, river to the sea crap, and supporting Hamas. I mean, that's unbelievable in my book, what's happening up in New York, about how many protesters are out there and how many people are not standing up for that is wrong.
Well, and these kids, they don't know. They don't even know what they're protesting for. They know very little about the situation, but they're told by people they look up to with nothing else to contrast again, and then they're out there. Just something to stand up for.
Something to
Sounds
stand up
good.
for. Hopefully this all works, right?
Yeah.
And they don't understand what really happened just over a year ago in Israel and how many people died in that concert. Just brutal. And the shocking thing about it, again, we're going to discuss this next week because
Oh, I'm so looking forward to that and learning more and having a better education.
we're going to have a guy
of
on the
everything
show
there.
next week that's from over there, knows firsthand what was going on over there, and he's going to tell us a lot about it. But what a lot of people don't realize is the Hamas people, the Palestinians that came across the border, were not Hamas. The vast majority of the people that participated in those murders, those slaughter, were normal Palestinian citizens.
Yeah.
There's just normal, everyday people just coming across.
Yeah.
Fathers, mothers, with kids coming across, and with such a evil goal and such a negative opinion of the Israelis that all they want to do is hunt and kill. And we know that Israel's not making. I mean, most of their decisions have been really good, and I completely support what they're doing with just taking out Hamas the best way possible. But like everybody else, nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to kill soldiers and Hamas people, and there's collateral damage in that. There's some innocents that are dying. Not all of them are innocents, because again, a lot of the very citizens were supporting that. I mean, if the citizens over there really didn't like Hamas, they would have stood up and kicked them out of government, because they've been ruling over there for 15, 20 years now, or if not longer. So we here in the United States, when we try to support stuff like that, we need to stand for it here at home. And I mean, this whole problem with the students over there, there's not a lot of people standing up for it in New York. I mean, obviously New York is way, way, way heavy left, and probably a lot of them are.
But I'm sure there's a lot of people who live there who feel differently.
Yeah.
And just need to be more vocal.
Need
But
more
I'm
vocal.
seeing it. I'm seeing hope. I'm seeing people speak up. That clip you have of that football player.
Yeah,
I mean-
we'll play that right now. So, but my last point there is when you're standing up, it doesn't mean you're out there with the picket lines on the other side of the street as the Hamas protesters. I mean, you could do that if you wanted to, but we're saying you got to stand up to your politicians and be vocal there. You got to be calling them, emailing them, writing them, and letting them know this is what we stand for. I need you to stand for it as well, so they know. Because if they think the vast majority of their constituency doesn't care or doesn't, or they're pro Hamas, or they're leaning Hamas, or they're indifferent, they're going to be indifferent and lean that direction as well, because they want to stay elected. Right? They're going to go where society goes. So if you're not standing up for it,
And if you find your elected officials aren't voting the way that you check their voting, there's ways to look at those report cards at the end. You got to get new people in there.
we're going to play one more Ben Carson thing, and then we're going to get to what Ingrid mentioned here, which is a football clip that's really cool with this C.J. Stroud. But we got I'm queued up already here, so I don't want to not do it. We got two more clips actually of Ben Carson, then we'll hit the C.J. Stroud clip.
I don't want to preach, but I have a very strong faith in God. And He's answered so many of my requests, including a request for wisdom and direction when sometimes the way looks murky, which way to go. He's never let me down. But when you have that relationship with God, it automatically improves your relationship with other people, including your spouse and your children. And you begin to understand the responsibilities that you have particularly as a role model, as a protector, as a provider. You know, we didn't go from a bunch of ragtag militiamen to the pinnacle of the world by accident. It was because of what we believed in. And that was our faith, which teaches us how to relate to each other. Our Judeo-Christian values say, love your neighbor. Not cancel your neighbor if they have a different yard sign or you disagree with them, but love your neighbor. The second cornerstone being liberty, the freedom to live the life that you want to live, one way or the other, as long as it doesn't interfere with other people. And that liberty is what has attracted so many people from all over the world. And those who try to say that we're a horrible country, that we're racist systemically, that we don't treat people fairly. If that were true, why would all these people be trying to get in here? Obviously, that's not true. And then the next cornerstone is community. You know, the ability to live together, to work together, to be happy together. That was one of the things that gave America a huge advantage. And one of the reasons that we rose to the top so quickly. And if we abandon that sense of community, we will sink just as rapidly. And then the fourth cornerstone, life. Honoring life from the womb to the tomb. And that means not only being pro-life and respecting what God has created, but also caring about those people on the street.
So he had four cornerstones there. Between one is just again bringing God back into it. Another one is community, and then respecting life. And that all goes back to just you got to stand up for these things. You can't just shy away from them. From birth to, or from what do you say? From birth to the tomb. Womb to the tomb is what he said. Womb to the tomb, and just respecting that one principle. But yet, abortion is probably the biggest controversy we have in the country. That was the biggest thing that the Democrats were standing on. They thought Kamala was going to win the election strictly on the whole abortion debate. And, I mean, that's how big of a debate it is here in the country, and it shouldn't be a debate. It shouldn't. I mean, it's
No,
murder.
because people don't realize there's always been provisions for those things like rape and incest. It's always been there.
It is back to the states where it belongs to be, but
Yeah.
now that it is back to the states, it's up to us as citizens of those states to now go to our state representatives, our state Congress, our state legislatures, our governor, and say, look, we need to limit this because it's straight up murder. And being able to stand up for your morals and values and not shy away from that is the whole point of this. I mean, that's we're going to have a lot of discussions about that over the
We should
couple
have
weeks.
somebody come on and teach people how to do that. Because you have people that go, I want to do something. I don't know where to start. How do I get involved?
Yeah, and how do I get a hold of them? What do I say once I do get a hold of them?
Yeah.
But we're going to have a lot of those individuals. We're going to have a lot of ideas of how to become active and how to stand up for that. But as we said before, if you just stood up between you and your neighbors, you and your associates, your bravery, your courage might stimulate them to stand up for what they believe in, right? And then if you get enough people standing up and persuading their friends and their neighbors, who then go out and persuade their friends and their neighbors,
Everybody can do something.
well, you could swing in an entire election that way. Or if you don't do anything, the other side is obviously out there doing it. I mean, they have a lot of negativity out there, and they promote a lot of false information, and they're persuading the wrong direction. So if we don't stand up for that, if we don't do anything about it, if we don't openly let our friends and neighbors know our position, or our family members know our position, then we're in essence condoning it. Because if you're not fighting it, you're condoning it. Because they're not going to stop fighting, ever. They want power. They want money, and they're going to fight for it every tooth and nail. And like I said at the very beginning of the show, they are always united. They always vote as a bloc. They always are together as a bloc, which is why Democrats have been in power for so long, is they have that huge force. They use their voting bloc. They use their unanimity, and then they use shaming and just lies in the media to control everything. And it's been working for them
It's been a great plan.
for a long time. For a long time, you throw out some slurs out there. You denigrate Kavanaugh, and maybe he won't be a Supreme Court justice. You denigrate Hegseth, and maybe they won't vote for him as our Secretary of Defense. You degenerate people. You attack their Christianity. You attack their beliefs, because you know for a fact the Democrats could care less about, or a lot of them, at least the politicians, don't care about whether you commit adultery or not, or they don't care if you drink or not. They're doing it themselves. I mean, one of the Republicans stood up in open Congress and says, you guys are belittling Hegseth, but who here has not known others within this room, this very room right now, that have not come and voted drunk? How many of
Great.
you that we know for a fact have cheated on spouses in this room? He said in open Congress like that.
Wow.
So the fact that they go and try to pick apart Hegseth or Kavanaugh or Trump in that matter that's what they use. They try to demean society. They try to demean us as a people, and they use that moral value against us, because they don't have it, but they know that we have it. And you can't be shy away from that, because all you need to say to respond to that is say, look, we're all Christian. Yeah, we are Jewish or conservative Muslim. We all have and espouse those principles, but at the same time, not a single one of us is perfect. Not a single one of us. We all have our issues. We all have our demons, and well, we're okay with that.
That's why I go to church on Sunday.
We're
I go
okay
to
with
church
that.
because I need it.
I'm not looking for perfection, which is why we were also upset against the whole anti-Trumpers that are out there, right? Because they're looking for this perfect politician that was composed and didn't have all the slurs in his tweets and a little bit more, in their minds, presidential. And I'm like, I'm not looking for a perfect individual, because I know I'm not perfect. I have my own weaknesses. I've had my own problems in the past. I know my neighbors do. I know family members that do. I know people that drink too much. I know people that swear too much. I know people that haven't been faithful to their spouses. It's everywhere.
I've seen God use many an imperfect person to bring to pass His will.
Yeah, more powerful things. And so when I'm voting for Trump, I'm not looking for a prophet. I'm not looking for a messenger
Somebody
from
to
God
worship.
to be in that position. I'm not worshiping this individual. I have certain things that I'd like to see him complete. I see that he is strong enough and willed enough to complete those things, and that's what I want in the office. And if you're going to use my Christianity against me and pick me apart, says, well, you should be more tolerant, or you should be more Christian and help those that are outside of this country and saving them, letting them import them here. And I'm just going to say no to that. Say, no, I'm standing up for myself, because we all know that only reason you're making fun of me and degrading my stuff is because you want to continue to import your future voters. And then you want to persuade the entire society to go your direction, which is completely immoral. Completely immoral on your side of the aisle. And we're not going to allow you to do that, or we shouldn't allow you to do that. Let's hit this last clip real quick, because he kind of has a conclusion here.
What would you like to see the majority of Americans do? What's the one thing?
I would like for them to recognize that we are not enemies. W-A-N-E, Wayne, we are not enemies. Don't allow anybody to make you think that just because somebody disagrees with you, that they're your enemy. Our strength in the past has come from the fact that we have learned to overcome our differences and work together. And if we can bring that sense back, our strength will be unlimited.
Our strength is going to be unlimited. Stand up for it, right? He words it perfectly in a way that he just wants you to not find enemies amongst everything. And that's how we started this whole thing. Is it's so easy for one Christian religion to start picking apart another Christian religion. Well, you believe this differently than I do. You believe this verse in the Bible differently than I believe that verse in the Bible. You believe in grace, and we believe in works, or whatever it may be, right? There's a lot of different beliefs. Instead of finding an enemy and picking apart each other, let's find what we all can agree upon, the common grounds, the common moral grounds that we have, and stand united as a Christian body.
Which is
as
what
a
Christ
Judaism
did.
body, and let's move society as a whole, as a country as a whole, back to God. I mean, I can see Trump doing that. I can see a lot of others doing that. Let's move everybody back that direction. And again, we're not going out there and pounding the pavement and beating everybody up if they're not going to church on Sunday, or if they're not reading their scriptures every day, or if they're not doing something that's maybe important within your specific religion. We're just saying, if we all stood up for these specific values, schools would be different, our kids would be different, our families would be different, everything would be different. Our elections would be different, and that evil, it wouldn't be so easy for that evil to get back into society.
Yeah.
And like you were just saying, I see a lot of that happening now. There's a lot of people that are not so ashamed of professing their belief in God, or professing their belief in conservatism. I see it a lot more in sports, like you were just mentioning in football. Athletes hit the touchdown, they're automatically pointing and thinking that they're God in heaven, and that it's all because of Him. One of the big ones out there, and one of the more popular ones out there, was the C.J. Stroud one, and we'll play a little clip there.
Well, CJ, there's a lot to sort through after that game, but let's start with the game-winning touchdown to Tank Dell. What'd you see?
First and foremost, man, I got to give all glory and praise to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, man. These last couple weeks, man, been up and down. I've been going through a lot on and off the field, man, but when you give your life to the Lord, man, He gives you opportunities, and it's what you do with it. So He gave me this opportunity to come back in that 2-minute drill, and we run great routes, got great time management with the coaches, and we go score a touchdown. It's really big for us.
Well, I mean that's the gist of it, right? He's on CBS, national TV. Who knows how many hundreds of thousands or millions of people are watching that. And he just came right up and said, all thanks to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And just simple. I mean, he's not...
Such an example. Such an
just
example.
simple.
What a
He
great
kept
kid.
it simple, but he professed it, and he kept it simple. Which just shows the rest of us that he's not shy. He's not afraid of it. He's got courage, like Ben Carson was saying. And if he's willing to do that on national TV... what are you willing to do in your own community? What are you willing to do on your own?
And food for thought, where he says, what did he say? Give your life up to God, and He will put opportunities out there for you. And doing this podcast is a great opportunity that I'm grateful for, and I'm looking forward to growing in it, learning more, being more educated, and recognizing God more in my life than I have before.
And again, that's the whole purpose of this podcast. So everybody there, we hope you like and subscribe. We want to make this podcast as big as possible. You'll probably be even more excited the more podcasts we put out there, and the more shows we put out there. We're going to be up again on YouTube, on Rumble, on all your podcast places like Spotify and Apple and iHeartRadio. We'll be on all those places. You can find us, look for us, tell your friends about us, and we're going to keep these podcasts incredibly interesting. Again, this is just an introductory podcast where we're just talking to each other.
Yeah, I'm not that interesting.
Trying to kind of give an introduction to what we're going to be doing here. But we're going to have a lot of guests. We're going to discuss a lot of really, really hard topics. abortion is a hard topic.
Yeah.
The whole conflict in Israel is a very, very hard topic. The whole conflict with what's going on with Doge is a hard topic because people are there's a lot of lack information there. It's a really good thing what's going on there, but there's a lot of lack information out there, and there's a lot of wrong information. You got people like Crockett out there just bad-mouthing Elon Musk and bad-mouthing everybody else because they're losing their pocketbook, and they don't want to lose their pocketbook because a lot of that money got kicked back to them for their elections. There's going to be a lot of these hard topics. We'll be talking about these demonstrations. We're going to be talking about our universities and the indoctrination are not only going on in our universities, but clear down to elementary schools. I remember specifically during this last county and state election, we were talking to some of the school board people and even the county commissioner about the books that were going into our public schools, not even the schools, libraries within the schools, but within our public libraries is what I meant to say. The books not just in the school libraries, but in the actual public libraries that are getting put into the kids section of the public library, not even in the adult section, but the kids section of the public libraries was books that are pornographic, verbally incredibly graphic, and should not be over there. You can leave that type of material over in the adult section where kids can't get a hold of it. But we literally had people that were running on the opposite side saying, you can't take that book out. They need to, openly said they need to know about that stuff. They need to see that stuff. They need to have experience with that. And I'm like, my kids
Says who?
are not going to have exposure to any of that ever. And that's where we stood up and said, no, this is wrong. This is going to stop now. And we did it with our feet. We did it with the election. And that's what's got to happen. And so we'll discuss what's going to happen with a lot of local, small-time officials or elected officials, as well as state officials. And we'll try to get some national officials in here as well during the podcast. And then we're going to also get some people that are not in politics at all. We're going to pull in some pastors. We're going to pull in some entertainers that are out there. We'll see what their opinions are in the entertainment industry and what they're facing, and because that's a lot harder industry to be in.
Yeah.
And be conservative. Because you get shunned really quick, but shunned very, very easily in that industry. But we'll pull them in, bring their opinions. We're going to get some international guests coming in, like we have coming in next week about talking about Israel. We're going to talk about Ukraine. We'll talk about Russia and what's going on there and how Trump is dealing with that.
I'd love to see what the viewers would also like to cover that we haven't thought of, or things that are going on in their local areas.
Again, it's going to be every single week, a new podcast coming out every single Monday. We hope that you enjoyed what you saw here as just our introduction about the stimulating conversations we're going to try to do. Again, this is an overview where we're trying to throw out a bunch of information that we're going to be discussing over the coming weeks and months and years that this podcast is going to be up, and trying to get thought going, get the conversation going. Because if we can get the conversation going within society, and you can get the conversation going amongst each of you that are out there, then what change can we provide? I mean, what can we not accomplish? If we got leaders out there like Trump, like Tulsi Gabbard, like Hegseth, like Kash Patel, that's doing awesome in there, like Kennedy that's in there, and they're pushing for these changes, and they're changing society as a whole. We need to back these individuals up and bring that down to our local level, to where our local level is having the same changes that the national level is experiencing. Any final thoughts?
We look forward to hearing your comments, what inspired you, what you liked, and this is Uriah and Ingrid, and this is God and Country.
This is God and Country. We'll see you next week.